right, so welcome everyone to this webinar. My name is Thiago and I am a Customer Success Manager here at TagoIO. Today we're going to be covering the Blueprint Dashboard. So this is a really cool feature, guys. So it's a type of dashboard that allows users to dynamically link widgets to multiple devices. This is a type of dashboard is extremely useful when scaling up applications. This means that you can distribute the same dashboard to hundreds of different TagoRun users, and each one would see their own data inside the dashboard. To date, I have with me Matt, that is our developer here at TagoIO, and he's going to be joining me in this presentation. Let's go. So we're going to be covering a welcome overview of what is the concept and idea of a dashboard, when would you use it, how is it applicable. We're gonna use that same concept into building applications, how we're gonna manage the user tags and access manager to this dashboard, and the application showcase. Remembering that feel free to present yourselves here in the chat, and there's also gonna be a Q&A feature at the end of the session. So if you have questions, please feel free to ask, and we'll be covering that at the end of the session. All right, Matt, you got it.
Thank you, Thiago. Okay, everybody. So as Thiago said, my name is Matt, and I am a developer here at TagoIO. So we're going to be covering Blueprint Dashboards, and also we're going to be covering just a little bit TagoRun and its capabilities, as well as access management, user management, and a bit of the device management. So first, let's talk a bit about building applications. So inside of TagoIO, our developer platform, once you start building your dashboard, you can follow two options, which is the distribute route or the deploy route. One is more suitable for development and another is more suitable for production. So if you are still building your dashboard, it's recommended that you go with the distribute route. And what this means is it allows you to generate a template of your dashboard without any data and share that template with other accounts and other profiles. And this is great, for instance, if you are looking for some feedback or you want to discuss the template or design of the dashboard with your coworkers, or maybe even with an external party. Maybe you want to get their opinion if the dashboard is looking good or if it's doing the correct job, but without any data. So distribute is mostly recommended for development since there isn't actually any data in the dashboard. It's just the shell of a dashboard. Once you actually build your application, it's recommended that you deploy your application inside of our TagoRun environment. And TagoRun is a system that we created in order for you to have your own platform and deploy your dashboards in that platform. It's very easy to set up. You got full control of your users. You can also customize the white label and you can have a custom domain. You can also customize colors, logos, and a multitude of texts inside of the platform. So deploy is mostly recommended for production and not development. Now, before we proceed, I want to talk a little bit about tags, and I want to explain the concept of tags for everybody here. So think of tags as a way for you to organize and group the resources in your application or your account. So here we have two dashboards. One has a green tag and another has a blue tag. And then at the bottom here, we've got 4 users. One has a green tag, 2 have a blue tag, and another user doesn't have any tags. So tags by themselves don't actually do anything. They are just a label that you can attach to a particular resource in TagoIO in order for you to organize and recognize a particular resource. But by themselves, they don't actually do anything. But tags allow you to apply a certain kind of logic in the system through access management and give certain resources to different users. So for instance here, by using access management, which we'll be covering just a tiny bit later, you can see that I have given the green tag dashboard over to the green tag user, and I have given the blue tag dashboard over to the blue tag users. And the user that doesn't have any tags didn't receive anything. So what I want to present here is that tags by themselves are just a label that you can attach to a resource, but by using access management, you can convert the simple label into a very tidy structure that you can associate and link multiple resources inside of TagoIO. Now, this is how tags appear visually in our system. So I'm sure everybody here, or most of you, are familiar with the device list inside of admin. So these are basically just devices that I have registered inside my application, inside my platform. I have 4 devices here showing in the name column. And then on the right side, I have 4 tags. So for each device, I have associated a tag called stage, customer, city, and state. So these are just the visual aspect of tags. You can see that I can very clearly see and quickly the stage of each device, if it's in production, development, or concept. I can also see to which customer this particular device is associated, also the city and the state. So these are visually how you can quickly see multiple tags of your resources. Awesome. So I've mentioned tags. Now let's dive a bit into access management and what it is. So just one more time, so everybody understands here, tags by themselves are labels, but you can harness the power of access management in order to make permissions and policies. So by using access management, I can create a custom policy, which is basically a document outlining permissions, and give different users different permissions. So for instance, here I have created 2 policies. One policy is the green line outlined by the green line here is tied to the supervisor user, which is indicated by the green tag. So for the green tag user, which is the supervisor, I can give him special access to a bunch of dashboards or a bunch of devices. So he can access whatever data he needs to because he is a supervisor. But if we go over to our end users here, you can see that they are outlined by a different color of permissions. So they only have access to their particular permissions, their particular dashboards, which means end users cannot access resources that are only available to supervisors. Access management then is basically a way for you to outline different permissions for different users. And this is the base inside of TagoIO that allows you to have different kinds of roles inside of your Tago run. Last but not least, we are going to be covering a very nice application showcase that I've prepared for everybody here. The main aspect that we're going to be covering is Blueprint Dashboards, of course. We're also going to be covering device management, access management, and user management. So this is going to be our focus. And of course, we're also going to be talking a little bit about Tago Run, but this is not our primary focus, okay? Very well. So let's begin. Let's dive into the actual application. And here we are. We're inside of our little account that I've prepared here for everybody to see. So in this scenario, in this use case, we're going to be simulating that we are a weather station company that builds and sells weather stations, which are just devices to get information about the weather. And then once a customer buys those weather stations and turns them on, it will send data directly here to TagoIO server. And then the customer who has bought our weather stations can log into our Tago run and see the data from their weather stations. So to achieve this, the first thing that we created is, of course, a dashboard. Not any dashboard, a blueprint one. And I'm going to be specifying why blueprint in just a tiny bit. So first, this is what the user is going to see when he registers to see the data of his weather station inside of our Tago run. He will be able to see the AQI, which is basically the quality of the air in his current location. He can also see the history of AQI. So in this case, just as a sample, this device has been turned on for 3 days, and we can see the history of the AQI for these past 3 days. We also have a history of the temperature for the last few hours. In this case, it's only picking up 3. And we also have the current temperature of the location where the weather station is situated, also the wind speed. So this is a blueprint dashboard. And as you can see here, it's very pretty, we've customized it, and it's ready for production. What I wanted to show you guys before I proceed is the difference between Blueprint dashboards and normal dashboards. So for normal dashboards, you usually have a very one-to-one relation, which means that you create a dashboard and you can send this dashboard over to your end user and he can see his data. The problem with normal dashboard is that it's not very scalable because you need to create a single dashboard for a single user. So if you have 100 users in your application, you would have to create 100 dashboards in your application. And it's a pain to manage because if you want to create a new widget, you have to go over to 100 dashboards and create 100 new widgets because you have a one-to-one relationship. And Blueprint dashboards come to sort of fix this situation, or I should say improve this situation, because you can create a single dashboard and dynamically change the data that is going to be seen in this dashboard based on the user that is seeing it. So for instance, let's say my name is Jake and I am seeing this data here on the weather station. I will only be seeing the data from my weather station. But if I have another user in the application, such as Matt, he will be seeing only his weather station data. So there's no crossing data. I only see the data that is designed for me, and Matt, or other user, will only see the data that is designed for him. So it's very versatile and allows you to create a single dashboard that is replicated to everyone that is seeing it in real time. If I need to create a new widget in this dashboard, it's very easy because all I have to do is edit this dashboard, add a new widget, and everybody that is seeing this dashboard at this very moment will receive the update in real time. Awesome. So now let's dive into TagoRun and to show you guys how the actual flow of this weather station company works. Because right now we are inside of our development system, admin.tago.io. So as I've mentioned, TagoRun is a system that we've designed to provide you with your own platform with a custom domain that you can send over to your users. So the only thing that they can do inside of this platform is interact with your dashboards. It's designed specifically for this. Now I've already went ahead and prepared my TagoRun here. It's in this URL, weather.run.tago.io. So I'm just going to click this. And we are going to be following the steps from the very beginning up until the end. So let's say our company here, the weather station company, we've just sold a unit, right? A hardware, a device for a customer called Jake. Now, Jake just received an email saying, hey, Jake, you've purchased our weather station. Log in to this URL, create an account, and then you will be able to see the data from your weather station. So Jake received this email. He's eager to see the data from his weather station that has been sitting on his porch or on his yard for about 3 days, and now he wants to see the data. So Jake will go up here to sign up, and he will create an account. So let's follow the steps of Jake, and let's say the name of the guy is Jake, and let's say Paul, for instance. Now let's put a random email here and at tago.io, just so we have an email. And let's put a password. Perfect. Now Jake just signed up to use our application, and normally he would have to go over to his account, go over to his email and confirm his email. He would have to click a link in order to confirm his email. But just to speed things up, we can go over to our development platform, head over to user management, click on Jake that just registered, and manually activate him. And this is just a way for you to bypass the security system that TagoIO implements, where you have to confirm your email. But just so we don't have to log into my email, let's just manually activate Jake. And there you go. Now Jake can log into the platform. So I'm just going to put his email key and the password. And there you go. We are inside of our TagoRun, a platform designed for end users to see their data. Now, if you look at the left side, it's a bit different than TagoIO. We have the Add Devices button, and we also have a Weather Station Data button. This weather station is the same design of the dashboard that we have seen in the beginning of the presentation. So we can see the AQI, the history, temperature, and the wind. But a curious thing is happening because we don't have any data. Since Jake just registered, he needs to associate his physical weather station with our system in order for him to see the data of his weather station. And to do so, he needs to go over to Add Devices. Now, if he goes over to this dashboard, Add Devices, he can then register his physical device that he bought. So let's say Jake types the name Weather Station 1. And the serial number normally would be located in the hardware, in the actual weather station. But since we don't actually have the unit here, let's just type a random serial number to be unique. Perfect. Now let's register our weather station. And everything went great because it didn't show any errors to us. So if we go back now to the weather station data, we can see that Jake now has data because his weather station has been turned on for the past 3 days and it's been sending data over here to TagoIO server. So we can see the AQI information at this very moment near Jake's location. We can see the last 3 days of AQI history for Jake because the machine has been turned on for 3 days. We can also see the temperature history of the last few hours, the current temperature, and the wind speed. So as you can see, up on the top here, we've got a Weather Station 1 because this is the device that Jake registered in the application. And as you can see, he cannot use a sample weather station. So if we go back to our development application here and go over to our dashboard, you can see that we have a sample device for weather station. This is just for development and debugging, but Jake doesn't have access to this because he only has access to his particular devices. However, inside of our application here, we do have access to Jake's devices because we are in the admin platform with admin privileges. So we can see every device available to us, including Jake's device. We can select it and see the data from Jake's weather station. But this is only because we are here inside of admin TagoIO, which is the development platform. If we go back to Jake's point of view, Tago Run, we can see that he still only has access to his devices. But let's fix that. Let's create a new device for Jake. Let's say instead of 1 unit, he purchased 2 weather stations and put them in different locations. So let's add a device. And let's say that Jake would like to register his second weather station that he just purchased. So let's register here. Go back to our weather station data. And as you can see now, Jake has access to 2 data sets, Weather Station 1 and Weather Station 2, because now he registered both of them. Now, if we select Weather Station 2, we can see the data from the Weather Station 2. So as you can see, the AQI and wind is a bit different from the Weather Station 1, and this probably means that Jake put the Weather Station 1 and 2 in very different places. Okay, so everything is going fine so far. Now let's spice things up and create a new user. Let's say the user Matt also purchased a weather station and he wants to see his data. So for this, let's just log out of Jake right here and let's sign up as a new user. Let's call him Matt with my last name. And then the email could be something like this with a random password. And there we go. Now Matt just signed up to use the application. Same thing would have happened to Jake. He would have received an email saying, hey, sign up here on this URL and you will be able to have access to your data. So let's just sign in. But before we sign in, we have to remember that I should confirm my email. And since we don't want to log into my email, let's go over to our admin platform, go over to users. And as you can see, the new user is already here. And we're just going to manually activate him. There we go. Now we can safely log in with this new user. Now, if we quickly go over to this dashboard, we can see that there isn't any devices. So everything really seems to be working because me as Matt, I cannot see data from Jake's weather stations. That would be honestly a major security flaw. So we have to create our own devices or rather register them to see their data. So let's do so. Let's head over back to Add Devices. And let's say Matt here has a farm and he put his weather station near his farm. So let's say near my farm is the name that Matt has chosen for his weather station, and a random serial number which would be located in the hardware. If we go over to our weather station, you can see that Matt now has access to his weather station, which has been sending data for, again, the last few days. Okay, everybody, so this is the main flow of the application. People can sign up in this custom domain that we've provided to them, and they can see their data or the data from their weather stations. Now let's see how this all translates into a structure inside of our development platform. So if we head over back to the first tab here inside of our development platform, I want to show you how everything looks internally. So first off, if we go over to user management, we can see we have two users, Jake and Matt, which is pretty obvious because we've registered, they signed up for themselves in this application. So we can see them here. Now, I've mentioned before about the use of tags, and we have two of them here. We have a type tag and a internal ID tag. The type only means that this user is a customer. So if I were to have, for instance, a supervisor, his type would not be customer, would be supervisor. And the internal ID is a sequential ID that we assign to a user every time one signs up. So if another user were to sign up right now, he would get the internal ID of 3. Perfect. Now let's see the devices of each of those users. So for instance, Matt has created or registered a single device, and Jake has created or registered 2 devices. In this case, devices mean weather stations. So if we click on device management on the left side, you can see we have 5 devices, but not to worry, we'll go over one by one to understand them. So first off, we've got the internal create weather station device. And as you can see by the name, this is internal, which means it's an internal device that only transports data, and we don't need to worry about this. This does not belong to any user. We also have another device called sample. And as you can see on the left side, on the right side, the type of this device is customer, but this is just a sample and does not belong to any customer. This is just so we can see and debug data in our dashboard. We also have 3 other devices up here on the top. We have the weather station 1 and 2 and the near my farm device, which belongs to Matt. And the way we know which device belongs to which user is by the internal ID tag, which is by far the most important tag available in the system right here. Because this internal ID allows us to understand which devices are associated with each user. So in this case, the near my farm has an internal ID of 2, and the weather station 2 and 1 have an internal ID of 1. Now, if we go back to our user management in a new tab right here, we can see that Matt has also an internal ID of 2, and Jake has internal ID of 1. So just by associating the correct tag on devices and users, now we can understand how each tag, or rather each device, gets associated with each user. Just remember one thing, tags by themselves don't have any logic. So just because I've set this name as internal ID and associated devices with users using the same value, that does not mean anything. The actual logic to link devices and user occurs in the access management platform, or rather access management resource, which we'll be covering right now. So if I were to just have the internal ID here and not have anything or any kind of logic in the access management, my application of TagoRun would not work. So let's understand how access management links up resources in your application. And it's very easy. Each row here in the access management symbolizes a policy. So in this case, we got 2 policies. One is called dashboards to users, and another is called devices to users. So dashboards, let's begin with this one. As you can see, it's a very simple policy. It doesn't have many things going on here. But before I show you what this access management does, or rather what this policy does, I want you to understand how policies work. So with policies, you provide a certain permission to a certain groups of TagoRun users. So in this instance, if we go over to the bottom here where it says permission, I am allowing a dashboard with a field any. And this basically means that I am providing access to any dashboard available in my system. And if we go over to targets here, if we take a look, we can see to whom we are providing the targets. In this case, we are providing full access to all the dashboards for all TagoRun users with a field tag equal to type customer. So let's back up and translate this whole system. Basically, what we are doing here is we are giving access to all dashboards on the left side here. If I had multiple, it would give out multiple dashboards to all users in my application who have the type customer. In this scenario, in this particular scenario, if I were to have a user that had the type manager, he would not receive a single dashboard because the condition wouldn't match. I am only giving dashboards to users who have the tag type equal to customer. Now we also have a very similar access here. If we go over to access, we also have devices to users. Now, if we click this, you can see that we have sort of the same layout of the permission, but it's a tiny bit different. In this case, I am giving permissions of devices. So before we proceed with this, let's just take a look again inside of our TagoRun. So if I click here, right now I am logged in as Matt. And if I click this weather station selector, I can see that I only have access to my particular device. I do not have access to Jake's devices. And this kind of logic is performed by access management with a type of device. So in this case, I am allowing a device with matching tags of internal ID. And to whom I am providing is all run users with a matching tag of internal ID. So there is a very neat system inside of access management, which allows you to match the tags of a certain resource with another resource. I've mentioned before, and I'm going to mention it again, tags by themselves are just labels. But by using the logic provided by access management, we can then link or match the tags from one resource, in this case, run users, to another resource, which is in this case, device. Just by doing this, you don't need to perform any kind of scripts or analytics. Just by doing this, we are only giving out access to certain devices for certain users. So Jake with this would not have access to Matt's devices, and Matt would not have access to Jake's devices in this instance, okay? Now you can customize and have multiple permissions. So for instance, if you were to give a certain kind of dashboard or device, you can also add a new permission. You do not need to have separate policies for each permission that you build, because policies by themselves can allow for multiple permissions. And in this case, we are giving out access to certain devices, but access management is very versatile in the sense that you can also deny access. So if I click here, we are allowing access to certain devices, but we can deny as well. Denying by itself is not that useful if you only have a deny in a single policy, but it's very useful if you are allowing a bunch of dashboards and you want to deny a specific one. So for instance, let's say you could allow 3 or 4 dashboards for each customer and then deny the access for the manager or supervisor dashboard. So it's very useful in conjunction with allow, because allow by themselves just simply allow, and then deny you can mix with allow in order to create very complex and custom logics. Okay. Now let's go back to our dashboard here. I hope everybody understood this whole access management logic here. And if you didn't, as Thiago mentioned in the beginning, feel free to ask a question or anything of the sort. Now, before I proceed here, I want to show you guys the power of dashboard. Rather, I want to show you the power or the strength of Blueprint dashboards. So let's just close this second tab, which is just a user management, and let's make some room here because we are going to modify this Blueprint dashboard, and the changes are going to be reflected in real time for everybody that is seeing this dashboard. If we go over to our second tab here, which is our Tago Run, it's independent from our development system. This is just for end users. You can see that we can actually visualize the whole dashboard very cleanly. Everything is working fine. Now let's pretend that us as the weather station company want to make a modification in this dashboard, and we want this modification to propagate and reflect on every user that is signed up or that it's using our application. And to do so, it's very easy. So me as a developer for the weather station company, I'm just going to edit this dashboard and make some room for a new widget, because we are going to be putting a new widget right here on this blank space. So let's add a new widget. And just so we don't have to customize too many stuff or too much stuff, because we are here in a presentation, let's just pick a very simple widget called clock. So I can just select clock and then hit create. And clock is a very simple widget. It basically shows the current time. So let's drag and drop it over here. Perfect. Now, this dashboard is done pretty much, because now we have the AQI, the history, and now we also have a clock. We have the temperature history, the current temperature, and the wind speed. Now, the good thing about this is that this change that I've just made on this dashboard does not need to be made anywhere else, because everybody that is using our Tago Run has access to this exact dashboard. So if we switch tabs here, you can see that now we are inside of our Tago Run and the clock is there, because the changes propagate in real time to the dashboards. Now, this is a very good thing to really think about. But imagine that if I had 100 users, I would not need to edit 100 dashboards in order to make this modification. And this is simply because I am using Blueprint dashboards. It allows you to get access to your specific data using the template or the design of the main dashboard. And this is really the power, the strength of Blueprint devices. I can head over back to my dashboard. Let's make this widget just a tiny bit more compatible with the other ones. So let's edit it. Let's go over to colors. And in the background, I can select a color. Let's select a white color with just a tiny bit of transparency. And let's hit save. And as you can see now, the clock is a little bit more compatible because it has a tiny bit layer of transparency here. Maybe we need to adjust the values a little bit and also add a header color, but the experience still works, and this is the most important thing here. Basically, as an overview, let me just summarize everything that we've learned here. So first off, Tago Run is a system that we've created in order to give you your own platform, and you can customize the colors, logo, and even the custom domain. You can change to whatever domain you own. And by using Tago Run, you can provide your end users with a platform where they can access their dashboard specifically. By using Blueprint device and access management, also tags, we are allowing each user to only have access to their specific devices and nothing more. If I had another device or another user, he would have only access to their specific devices. Well, that is it for today's, guys. Do you guys have any questions? Feel free to ask something.
Great presentation, Matt. Thank you for that. It's good to reveal. It's such a powerful tool. And when you see in greater detail like this, it's very clarifying for everybody. We do have a couple of questions. In the meantime, guys, please feel free to do so and go to the Q&A or the chat and type your question there so we can wrap it up. So we have here, did the serial numbers for jack stations already exist as a device? And I think the next one following it, it might belong to the same question. So we have here, when you registers Jake's account, the internal ID tag was automatically set to 1 and Matt's was set to 2. How is that automated and sequential number?
Perfect. Okay. First off, very nice question, Gary. So let me show you how it all works under the hood. So first off, we need to understand a concept called actions, right? So actions allow us to perform some kind of action, really, when an event happens inside of our application. So let's say, as you can see over here, I already have an action called onNewUser. And this action will run or will trigger whenever a user signs up to use our Tago Run. And you can combine this functionality or feature of actions with analysis. This basically means that every time a new user signs up, I can trigger then a script which will configure the user internal ID. So if we go over to actions here and click on this action, you can see that I have set a trigger here. If a run user with a type customer is created, I can then on the right side run one or more analysis. And in this case, I am running a configure user internal ID. And this is just a script in Node where it updates the user with a sequential ID based on the last one. So if the last user registered had an internal ID of 3, the next one would have a internal ID of 4. If we go over to the analysis and click on configure user internal ID, you can see that the code is very straightforward. It's just a Node or JavaScript that basically grabs the last user, increments the variable, and assigns it to the just or newly created user. Okay, so basically, Gary, for this, as a response here to summarize, we've combined the use of actions to trigger whenever certain things happen in our application, and then we are triggering an analysis, which is basically a script that you can run on Node or Python, or even any language that you prefer if it's external on TagoIO. Now, the first question that you asked, Gary, is did the serial numbers for JakeStation already exist as a device? In this case, the serial numbers in this particular use case don't really mean anything because in a real world application, the physical device would have a serial number, a random one, and then we would grab the data inside of TagoIO based on the serial number. But here we don't use it because it's just a mock data. We don't actually have the weather station hardware in our location. So it's just to symbolize. It doesn't actually mean anything in this application.
Thank you for your answers, Matt. Gary, I hope that helped you out and answered both of your questions. If anybody has any further questions, I would just like to remind you guys, we are recording this session, so we're gonna make it available later on our website. I'm gonna be sending everyone links to access it. And if no one has any further questions, I think we are in good shape here, Matt. I would like to thank you for the presentation. And thanks everybody that joined. And I look forward to seeing you all in the next webinar. Stay tuned and tago.io/events. And don't forget to sign up for our newsletter so you can stay tuned also with everything that's been going on with Tago and IoT. And like Matt's showing right now on the screen, you can go create a free account on Tago. There's a link to all our videos there, and there's webinars. You can register for our webinars, request one-on-one demos with me if you have any doubts or if you didn't have the chance or opportunity to get in touch with the platform yet. I can always help you with that. And if you are a developer, you have any technical questions, you need further detail on your answers, and if they need to be more elaborated for you, you can also engage with our community where we have our team of developers there in support to help you and interact with you and so on. All right, so I think we don't have any other questions. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you all in the next webinar. Bye-bye.